Um, Your Majesties, Eloqueno, Your Honors, Rabbi Braille. This is Shabbat Shalom to everybody in survey. 13 of this November 2021, and I got on my mark over what these residuals from what the judgment we go through. 14 past 10 at my mark. Um, Came through so much, and we've been through so much more. So more as whatever this we can describe, and we can just breathe around whatever as much we live. You wondered if I could make in a moment over just publishing this one video, and about this video you wanted I to just talk, and about the talking is exactly like a moment to let go, and a moment to just being on the fugue, or simply to not even taking a moment around for whatever as much what aches, referring for that bleeding without having as strongest ever references to the making what the normal as what life involves, and can really compromise over as much we are and that we are for and we are about to be for and what we care to be for, makes us so often for what most than any other to simply brute self as much life, no matter what the situations are around anyway, and no matter what, and no matter how the real test for a relevance about life, it does so much more than the simplicity over being just on what the normal as whatever it is to be. It's a very complicated consequence and troubled part, that between the whole of the choices it cannot be but for what as sensed which best as ever we can compromise one normal accent over what it means we care and we do, but not for a compromised part. Actually, is we are and we do and we care and we deliver. And the focus of this day is to so much crossways, but not for must be accepted. But it's a delicate problem that I still am suffering around. And between the whole of the possibilities and choices, I found that is so much more and so much worse than what it can be definedly, for the accent of what definitions to mention, and what as most, with the significance between what the choices that can really involve the best ever we deliver and the best ever we are for it, on normalities that are off of the normal and a reality that is away from how to real define. And so oftenly, more than any other, is just we try to survive the best seasons and the best reasons and the best as what our judgment can support us and the conscience to be held as what life means for we can continue over what it is us. I really am forwarding so much troubles, and I am in a very diversity of attempts that are with all intentionals to the cause to me and to cause we the whole of the ways that we understand and I understand is exactly for what this defines the realities too, making so much at the hour of the reality itself and the reality to concern what the reality to be with. Then, over and over, what the most of any class is exactly the diversities on the right trouble part, and the consequence over what the troubled consequence and significances that doesn't makes no breath to nobody and won't ever introduce nothing else but disasters, and the disasters are for the clear as much intentional about the sickness on the best of our ways that they concern stay to be the unique element to being for whatever they says gotta be. Then at the best ever for the norm over what the reality as much describing is exactly the difficulties around the whole that we are practically like trap of life because of bastards and abominables knew how to making the best ever as what spurious and what as colunk ways to making us on the forced condition for what we concern patrimonies, for what we concern and for what we deliver as much our normal which we treasure, that we care for, that we love for, but the problem is that we cannot trap life. But the thing is, how do we rescue ourselves in life to be expressed on the way which as the real place, with the respect and with the right clear fact that's decency and healthy for it to be around as much we know and we fight for and we make it. And between the whole of the choices is that as much whatever the tougher, but it's not for the tough. It's exactly a norm that we just go through. Doesn't mean nothing bad we can describe. And further descriptions, we found an existential point, which is inevitable and unrefutable for the reality itself, and we have a compromise, for we've been on the reality as much we exist. Then congruentials, though as what making coercion as this self is, we cohere the reality. We found it. We make it happen. It's a little farther than any other and it's a little difficult, much as whatever to define, and the problems and the troubles with the whole of the intentionals cast for what this is exactly to the making on the ways that as the ways to be around, with the around to say, and more than any other with stress that every days have been making the none but whatever will be exactly a real attachment over the disasters and how the disasters do not fall with and not let go. Once that the reality itself is exactly impossibilities which none any other as what it will really be, involving us as responsibles for what we do and what our existence is. But so often it's not for what the responsibility, even though we naturally do, we survive. Between the whole of the choices is not for what the survivals, but even though the census strikes you, you can't make it. Anybody will. It's the simplicity you don't want to trap that and you won't give in. Even though the best ever try, you make the normal effort. So life expresses, and life is we are with. Um, the clear fact of all is exactly so much to say and so much to fugue with. The clear fact of all is exactly so much that we define and so much that we defy with. But the references of this is exactly so much that we have problems about. And so far as what the problems defines us, that we have to, and so we will. And then, once the clear fact of all, and once the reality of the completeness, which makes the clear senses as what is exactly for us, we found the clear senses of what it is exactly for all. And once we define the clear fact for all, we understand not only the reference for the responsibility of us, but we are part, we are member, we carry as well. And we do part of it, patrimonializing, um, treasurizing, insperspicizing, and prescindibly for certain senses around, we imprescindibilize the life itself for whatever as much we won't trap it. Then we forward. Um, imprescinable for we to found and we to be, imprescindible for we to understand and we to be the real us, imprescindible that we can really healing, imprescindible that we can really build, we can making the reference like a very immunological part between what is and between what makes the temperatures, but on the senses about what is exactly the reference, because of once the body is healed, the body can be recuperated. If there is something to reap on the body, it's the disease, but can be defined and understood and found and identified for the disease, can be off, and the rest of the pieces can be in one for there to have the expression of what a person. Then not for we to be one body, but at the reference of what this analogical class metaphor, like for an abstraction, is exactly that in the middle of the reality, we society, we persons, we community, we nation, we got to identify what means exactly a disease to take it off, and what is the part to healing, what is the part to restore, and what is the part to making the right job. So we forward, so we proceed, so we make the right. And between the whole of the choices is exactly how the definitions between. And between the definitions, we make the senses. And though the senses, life expresses. All right, so much more and so much farther to say. And I'm so tired, bundled, enraged, fury, have been through so much in this day with a calamity and a sickness after another, and now wanted to rip in pieces sick once, and still the evangelical war against my person, defining me like the worst of the whole of the humans and the worst of the whole of the examples, making abominations and disasters and trying to taking the whole of my work that will be my treasures over the witchcraft that they does. With the whole of the monsters that they handle and trying to invade in my place for the making the war and playing the superheroes of a heaven that is exactly demons like them. And so at this hour and at this day, they've just done a breaking belt, though in a very enormous other belt, I am treating the situation and myself. And I'm going to finish this about justice with LOK and already everyone is sentenced for capital sentence, and everyone got to die. I'm finishing my chat, and the monsters are died. Sorry for this with Furby if you need it. I'm so sorry if you can, please. Are dead, but one unique, and the one unique, the whole of the rest complete, and the one unique dead as well. And they are going to suffer the consequences for what they thirst to doing and continue making, and they are going to understand that they doesn't do, nobody else has nothing. Victims apart, the healing part of what the nation calls, not for they to be farther as much if a nation or not, part of a very sickness like we call that is not something of God, and deliberates for imperialism and our very language from Sodom, which is the real meaning of evangelicals. Victims and innocents apart, the reality for the right definitions and the right identity on the wrong place, on the wrong side, on the non-understanding, but having consequences and not knowing but what to do about what will have to be done at the hour of not understanding and not identifying what must be healing and what must be part of and what it is to reap out. And I'm sorry for this even though, but on the reference of however, everything has a place and an order, and so then victims and innocents with the best effort for making exactly what about them own and about the day of the respect and the decency but themselves, and about the reconsiderations about what it means exactly to be a person first of all by them, and continuing forward it is exactly the reconsiderations to be decent, respectful, and having a little bit for placement over what the damages and the destructions and the sufferers who will ever need that. Some rhetorically, others for simply recall, others for the simplicity, for the conscience on them own, to reconsider, to recognize, and to making what it will be exactly misplaced, or what it will be exactly the wrong side, actually, for to find out the place of everything in itself, to feed as persons where so much more El-Jai, Elokeinu, the real Almighty Holy God, loves and makes exactly part of rights for life. And the whole as El-Jai KADOISH, Almighty Holy God, the real, the eternal, defines and determinates to be with every as he embraces and he loves for the creation, and heaven and everything is his own. And he determinates and decides, not them and neither evangelicals. So further as much, whoever on the mistakes, whoever erratic, whoever affected, whoever on the pains, whoever auspices, for whatever doles, for however conditions, the dolo cannot be higher than the reference of the will, for the making some senses as much, what as a person, though as much the reality is responsibility, though as much the responsibility expresses over, the person understands place. And the place is respect, alignment, order, decency, and let whoever to exist as for life to be exactly as the person that must be, each and everyone, and Almighty Holy God to be Himself, and the person about them to be who they are, and the place of them own, and that is the right orders. So we continue with every person and whole as much we embrace and we exist as with. With. And everybody exists as much with each other. The Klisperkers, for what the references of this is exactly so definitely over so much problems, since the right conclusion, which the complete of the definitions for pardon and order over a process that were difficult in a map to follow for the complexive and the massive destructions. But there was much, whatever this is and this was, over the map. Elokeinu is Elokeinu, and we are going to do what is about our responsibilities and our care we to do. So we proceed, and everything does a very normal day as much until we found how to make that worthy now. And we deliver the healthy place and the best of our care for it, as much to understanding what that is, more than any other, deliberates forwarding us if we really want to. But more than wanting is exactly the senses, no matter how, no matter what. We really do, we really care. All right, so sorry for everything, really. On the best as ever as possible, this to be, as best ever possible, what we can making a count now, which as the normalities as we found to be. As we are, we know ourselves and we know one each other. The best ever we can do is exactly to always have at the best ever conscience, at the best ever cognitive capacity, what the aware they, at the aware us, at the aware all, and what it makes us to be as the persons we are, for what it delivers the realities of us, though as what the right place and the right moment and the right we go through, and we fit part which we are, which we deliver, which we exist, we call fight, we co-build, we co-breathe life with who we care, who we are around, who we are responsible of, which as responsibilities we deliver for what this is, the completeness of a number that makes us part of a real existential that involves we know, we understand, we care, we do. The ones you love, the ones you make warring for, the ones you fight for, the ones you just work for, or the ones you only be part of something which around. Not necessarily to have to embrace the complete of the humankind, but it's a normal reality which is a normal persons we exist like. And the reality for us normalities, which in any class of our realities themselves, to be persons that you relate who you relate, and you deliver the community immediately as much your affections, your cares, your worths, your everydays as what it defines you as a person in the complete activity as a human, any class, any normal will do, around what the normalities of every special which as any person existing as much Elokeinu made it to be. To making the normalities as much what Elokeinu placed for a normal reality and the normal existential as He gave this to happen. For us and normal for each of us. And the reality for this and the best ever that we embrace and the best ever we can do and we can deliver, that makes us the persons we are. And just to really be for what we care, or at least for what the respect of it. I think that it's important at this stage to remember so much and so long and so ever have been happening determinately a very crowd of events and problems, and a very not even countable capacity for what the events between at not but any other, which so affecting the completeness as what it defines us as persons and our identities, which is difficult to continue once the breath is not enough for what a thought can be expressibly for the anguish or the trying on the grave scarring doesn't reach us for a word to say. And between the whole of the choices, it's really delicate, but I think that deserves the day for what it calls us to be. And once we are called about who we are and we to be, it's exactly that refers dil tchenam dil chtesher dil chemat kishba et chet kishba et chemachat na esaim na etzavet. It was told so much, but the reality is no remedy exists as what it is. The example that I gave so long ago: you have a house, and in the house you begin a day, and you deliver to cleaning and deliver what it is exactly at the moment for a self-treating. That is your life, like. And you put the dump and the dust away, you scrub around. You put a little wax in the wooden floor if you cut it, or any cleaning and deodoring a little bit and de-infectious for whatever smudge, if just stones, ceramic, whatever flint, whatever, any class of every floors. And you deliver to the beginning about putting orders, and you put each as adorned in every place, you put each as furniture in every place, you clear your ambient, you deliver your day over treating yourself, you found yourself and you make the clearing, the cleaning, you restore it, you put the orders, and whatever as much you found, it's going to be right there. Maybe not the best, but you have it, and you make the best with it. And you begin to seek in the way for the making it count, for it's going to work for you. It's going to be for you, not a piece of trash, but something that is going to provide you that order that you are going to use for what your life expression. Between the whole of the choices, you continue to make the job, you deliver the provision, you work it, you make the right adorn, you decode the walls, you make some curtains, you let the light go through, you let the air running around the complete of the inside atmosphere, you make your best ever day for what it is exactly the orders over self-treat. And so you invite friends, you share it with friends, with family, you make your best ever ambient, you give them the best ever you could, you provide for you care, you make the best ever you found, and you share because of its celebration about you person that you found yourself. But you begin with you make your house to worth as much your own treat. And that is what you give yourself. And once you found yourself, not like a formula, but like a very essentials for senses, is what you give to others. What you do for you, but not for this like a formula or for like a very trick or trade thing. It's exactly the real genuine care. It's exactly you person to not only to consider, but to find out as much who you are and to have that on your as self to be on the best ever way, to not just treating yourself, but how to treat and how you fix the life, how you make your life possible. And though as much you share your life with others, and that is the person you give. And that is the way that must be considered. And that is the reality that we have every day. And no remedy exists. This is simplicity. Existential is the reality. Like a very not for picture devising, which others are really tragic. But in the case of this is we already exist, and we exist who we are, and we have what we count with. And that is the prime matter way to begin to make it work. And once we care, it's a treasure. We make it count. Okay, you wanted I to give you. בטח מסשלי חדרתי שפות חנחל שפת חדרתי של פחם של סחלם של סתחל שיבה ראשי שלישי ידרדך בת מסה בת מאותכם רשיכלה קרמי כדי שלה את כמיב את כשפה את כשקלתרך את בישה את בסבב. This is a Torah at Reilisecha et Shmadchemi Malcham Malkastach. And it's on Parashat with Cheliken Radvishpa Antich Manchmad. I continue working, we continue making the job, and I promise you, and I'm so sorry for everything, and I'm sorry, it's some miserable sickness around, and I'm sick of all. I'm sorry. I promise you I'm going to make my best that I can, and I'm sorry for everything. And we treat with the problems, whatever these problems be, the best as much we have with. Sorry for everything, and I love you all so much, and I promise you I'm going to make my best. Love you so much. Okay, I love you, Moses. I love you, Majesty. I love you, beautiful Subi. I love you, gorgeous. Love you so much.